All right, guys, this is an AI-based content generator. In this case, we are going to generate a newsletter based on a topic we give it here. And this is built with Python, Streamlit, Langchain, OpenAI's GPT-4o, latest and the greatest, DuckDuckGo search engine, because it's free, and Faiss Vector DB, which is a fantastic vector DB built by Facebook. And before we get started, let me show you the architecture overall. All right, so this is what's happening initially from the user. Using this input form, we're going to ask for a topic to generate the newsletter with, and then we will hand over that topic to a search module. Then we will hand over this topic to a search module where we use DuckDuckGo search engine to perform a search based on that topic, and then we will collect these search results and hand it over to a researcher module. Now, please understand at this point, none of these modules are AI agents. I mean, this is how I generally design my code. Before I improve them by adding agents, this is how I initially do them, hand code all the Python modules myself. Then later on, it gives me a nice and clear picture to understand, to pick which modules are ready to be converted into AI agents. And that way I can move to a version 2 of this application. So at this point, these are nothing but Python-based modules. So this researcher modules is connected to OpenAI, and based on this search result, this one's job is to pick the top 3 URLs and create a list of them and hand over to a scraper tool where I'm going to go ahead and make calls to the internet using those URLs and collect the data, convert them into vector using OpenAI's vector embeddings, and write them into a Faiss Vector database. And then once that's done, then I'm going to hand over this vector DB as an object to a summarizer module, including the initial topic. This summarizer module then connect to LLM again, and it will have the necessary prompt engineering done with it, to giving it the instructions it needs to create a nice little summary out of those internet collected data, and then hand over that summary to our final newsletter generator module. And here also I'll use some extensive prompt engineering to give it instructions what to do based on this summary and the initial topic. Utilizing the LLM, is going to go ahead and produce the final result, which is a complete newsletter, and hand it over to the user. And this is how the whole thing will operate. And now let's go see how this is working. All right, so we're going to give it an initial topic. All right, so this is going to be our topic, Atlanta Real Estate 2024, and I'm going to hit enter. So right now it's went to the internet, collected the URLs, collected the best URLs, top 3 of them, and using that, now it is getting ready to create the Faiss Vector DB. It's finished creating the vector DB, and now it's performed the summary, because this is the job for the summary module, and summary module handed over to the newsletter generator, and thus we have a complete newsletter in our hand with nice little icons, formatting. This is basically a markdown format with some HTML and necessary links and everything. So now that we have our complete result in hand, it is time for us to hit the code. All right, so we are back at the code. Now let's look at the structure of our code here. This is the app.py. This is our main file. And this is where my Streamlit front-end code is here. And from here, I'm bringing in all these modules, the actual Python modules. And in this init file, I am organizing them in such a way so that from this utils folder, everything will be exported. And here you can see all my 5 modules. As mentioned here, as you can see, the DuckDuckGo search module, the researcher module, the scraper tool, summarizer module, and the newsletter generator. All 5 of them are right here. Now let's go check on this main application file. This is where I am pulling in all these modules, and this is pretty much the Streamlit configuration here. I'm centering layout, etc., etc. And this is my st.header, generate the newsletter, and my subheader, as you can see right here. And this is the variable I'm declaring, search query, and this is my input form where I'm actually collecting the search query from the user. And once collected, I have organized them in 5 different steps. First step would be, I'm going to go over them quickly as an overview first, and then we're going to go module by module. So in the first step, this is the search result. This is where we're collecting the search results, and then this is the researcher module where we collect the top 3 URLs and send them to the next one, where this is pretty much the scraper tool where we scrape the data from the URLs and create a Faiss Vector DB, and then hand over to the 4th module, which is the summarizer one. Here we create the summary and then hand over to our 5th and the final module, the newsletter generator module. And this is where I have a little bit of HTML included with the markdown, and unsafe allow HTML set to true, so that it looks nicer. I have a little nice little background added. And right here it's the main function is called, right? That being said, now let's go step by step. Step 1, what we're doing is we are invoking this search DuckDuckGo with details module, and we are sending the search query as an argument. So now let's go to this file to see what this is about. And that would be our search utils. Yes, that's it. So here we are just pretty much taking the query, and we are instantiating a search object using DuckDuckGo search results, which we are actually bringing in from Langchain community tools. And once the search object is created, we are collecting the results by using search.run, passing the query. And once we get the results, this is where we are just formatting everything. Basically, if you look at right here, we created an empty list, and after we've processed the raw data, and then we just filling in this empty list with this dictionary where we have title and the link and the snippet, and then we are returning that list as a detail. Now let's go back to step number 2. This is where we're going through those results and picking the best ones. This is the researcher module, and we are calling it pick best articles URLs. And this time we're sending our search results and the initial search query. So now let's go find this guy, pick best articles URLs, right here, pick best URLs. And these are the libraries I'm importing. This is the first time I'm getting the chat OpenAI, and the rest. Here I have a simple description for the module. Basically, this response dictionary is the search results that we got from the search modules. And here we are turning that search result into a response string using JSON dumps. And then we are creating our LLM object by invoking chat OpenAI. And this time we're using a GPT-4o, the latest one, and temperature setting it to 0.7. And this is where our prompt engineering comes in. So let's go to a little bit more detail here. So what I'm saying is you are a world-class journalist, researcher, tech, software engineer, blah, 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 and basically an online course creator. You are amazing, blah, blah, blah. You are amazing at finding most interesting, relevant, and useful articles on certain topics. And this is where we're sending this is where we're putting our search results, the response.string, as a query response. Hereby, I'm telling the AI to look through this data to come up with the best results. Above is the list of search results for a query, right? And query is the initial query that we got from the user. And based on that, this is the final instruction. Please choose the best 3 articles from the list and return only an array of the URLs. Do not include anything else. Return only the array URLs. Also, make sure the articles are recent and not too old. If the file or URL is invalid, show www.google.com. So in case it fails to do so, what the response should be, we're also directing that. Now we're taking that instruction as a template and creating a prompt template where we are taking, where we are actually converting the whole thing into a nice little prompt template using chat prompt template from Langchain. And here, the latest way of doing things, we're no longer using the LLM chain. We're using runnables this time. So we're declaring a variable chain, and the chain type would be runnable. And this runnable, we are actually getting from right here, Langchain _core dot runnables. And this is the type of our chain. And we are preparing the chain by using the prompt template, the LLM, and a string output parser, which we are getting from right here, Langchain core.output parser, so that we can parse through the text. So once we create the prompt template, now we are preparing the input data, basically setting the variable values. The response str would be the response string, and the query would be query that we received from our previous module. And with all that ready and handy, now time for getting the result. So our result should be chain.invoke and passing through that variable value. And with that result, we're just loading it up in a URL list and returning that list. All right. So now let's go back. Now we have our top 3 URLs. Basically, step 2 is done. So this is what we're doing with the step 3. And by the way, so before every step, we added this st.spinner, and that's why you saw the spinner spinning while it was working on that module. So now that we have our top 3 URLs, now we're going to go ahead and invoke extract URL content, because this is going to be our scraper module, this guy, right? So far, we saw, did the search, pass it to our research module to collect the top 3 URLs, and we send it to our scraper module, and now we're going to scrape the internet with those URLs. So let's go find this guy, extract URL content, and that would be this guy right here. And these are our imports from Langchain. As you can see here, we are getting the OpenAI embeddings and the Faiss Vector store from Langchain. And initially, we create our embedding object, and then we use unstructured URL loader and send the URL list so that we can scrape the data and load it up in here. And then loader.load equals data. And this is where now our unstructured data is stored. And then we move to the next step, and which is the text splitter, because we're not going to dump everything at once. We're going to turn them into smaller chunks, all the data. So we create our text splitter object using character text splitter, and our chunk size will be 1000 and overlap 200. And with that, now we move to the document creation. We're using the text splitter, and that's where we put our data that we collected right here as an argument, so that now we have smaller pieces of document listed right here. And we are now ready to send all those to a vector database. And this is where I'm declaring this DB object and using Faiss dot from documents, and as argument, I'm sending this document and the embeddings that I created using OpenAI embeddings, thus creating a Faiss database, a vector database. So after that is done, we're just returning the DB object, just like we saw here. So once the DB is created, we're just handing over the vector object to the summarizer module. And that's exactly what we're doing. So now let's move to the next step. Step number 4, the summarizer vector DB content. In here, we're calling this summarize underscore content and sending this Faiss DB, the DB object, and the search query, the initial search query, so that the summarizer module can create a proper summary. So let's find out what is happening there. Summarize content. So at this point, we are collecting our usual. And here we have our DB and the initial query, and k equals 4 means the number of documents that we want to look for when we do a similarity search through that DB. And right here, we just perform the similarity search using that query and collect 4 documents and store them right here, docs. And next, we join all the content to perform a nice little string to send to the LLM. Now we create our LLM object using Chat OpenAI. This time I'm using GPT 3.5 Turbo. Then again, to get better results, I recommend, especially in production, you use GPT 4.0 or whatever the latest there is, and temperature 0.7. And here is the most interesting part for me, the prompt engineering. And here we are saying the AI, by passing the docs as context and saying, as a world-class journalist, researcher, article, a newsletter, and blog writer, you will summarize the text above in order to create a newsletter around this query. And this query is also the initial query we collect from the user. And then we're saying this newsletter will be sent as an email. The format is going to be like Tim Ferriss's 5-bullet Friday newsletter. I mean, this is like a few shot prompt. We are giving it an example and a very specific set of instructions as to how to organize them so that our final module can have everything handy and ready to go to perform the final task of generating the newsletter. And that being done, as usual, we create our prompt template with the necessary variables. And this time we are creating a runnable chain again, but I'm calling it a summarizer chain, and sending the prompt template, LLM, and the string parser, and then setting the variable values. The docs would be docs page content, the string that we created, and the query would be the initial query. And this is how we are invoking the summarizer chain with the input data and collecting the results here and returning the result. Just like we saw here, collecting the vector DB and the initial query, it just, with necessary directions and prompt engineering and the use of LLM, it just generated the summary and ready to send it to our next step. So now let's go back. All right, so our 5th and the last step here, structurally it's almost the same. Only thing added here is the st.markdown, because this is where we're going to have our final result. But most importantly, this is what we are invoking: generate newsletter, passing the summary and the search query, the initial search query, to this generate newsletter module. And this guy is now looking like this. All right, so we have our usual libraries pulling in, and just to make sure what we get, we're just this is called defensive programming. So we know this is strings, but just in case, we don't really trust our LLMs 100%. So whatever we're getting, we are converting it into a string for our next LLM. Then we are creating our final LLM model using GPT-4o, temperature 7. And this is, once again, our final instruction set or prompt engineering. And this is our result summary text. And we're saying, as a world-class journalist, researcher, blah, 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 you will use the text above to as a context about query, the initial query, to write an excellent newsletter to be sent to subscribers about the query again. This newsletter will be sent as an email, blah, blah, blah. So you already, this is pretty much a repeat of the summarizer one. But additionally, we are adding, actually, let me Alt-Z to see all the lines, okay? So now we are another few shot prompting here, giving it almost exact example as to how to start and begin the newsletter. Hi all, here is your weekly blah blah blah, and I used to hard code this one, but now depending on the query, I'm just telling it like change according to this query. Actually. See, this is a mistake I'm going to fix right now because it's no longer a tech. Initially, when I started, I was generating a tech-based newsletter, but no longer. I just replaced this with this guy as a variable. So no matter what the user query is, based on that, LLM will change the subject of the topic. And then this newsletter, a list of what I find interesting and worth exploring. Make sure to also write a backstory. I mean, now these are the stuff we're adding additional to the summary. The summary is the main context, but now we are adding stuff to it to make it look like a real newsletter. So backstory about the topic and make it personal, engaging, and lighthearted before going into the meat of the newsletter. And once again, very specific directions right here. And if there are books or product involved, to make sure to add Amazon links, etc., to create as a placeholder. So this is for the user. LLM will create a placeholder for in case the recipient of the newsletter can change them and put their own links in there, and also then in the end we're saying as a sign off, write a clever code in format in Markdown. This is the instruction related to learning, general wisdom, living a good life, etc., etc. So I'm telling it to, put an engaging quote in there. As you can see in the final result, right here in the end, see it actually, added a quote by Warren Buffett, right? And I told it to, sincerely, the Moose AI Guru, whatever. This is how I told it to end, and that's what it did. Let's go back. All right. So, and this is the sign. Sign with. Replace the sign with. I mean, initially it was actually including the sign with. So I just specifically told it, hey, don't put sign with, right? Just use sincerely. So now it started putting sign sincerely. It's pretty amazing, and especially the 4.0 version. It's very efficient in getting this prompt engineering instructions. And as you saw in the end, it was the Moose, the AI Guru. That's how it should end that newsletter. And here I gave it some more instruction as to how the output should be. The newsletter, generate the newsletter in Markdown format, but do not use Markdown at the beginning. So see, initially the results I was getting, on the top, it was actually mentioning there was a text called Markdown. So I specifically gave it instructions, hey, remove that Markdown thing. Just give me the code and the output as is. Don't put anything extra. So once you get your perfect result, then you create your prompt template. I mean, these parts are exactly same. The prompt template, and then the chaining of the runnables. This time I'm doing it, newsletter chain and then prompt template LLM parser and input variables and this, the summarizer text the summarized text, that string that we created up top is right here, and the initial query. And now we're invoking that chain with that input and get the result, returning the result. And now let's go see the final one. Basically in here. So once it got the newsletter, so now we just created a wrapper, st.markdown, because we know whatever is coming is a markdown, and we added a little bit of extra HTML so that gave it a nice little background, another header, etc., so that the content looks nicer. This is also another trial and error thing you have to do, and to get the final result of this guy. So once again, we just gave it the topic. It went ahead and researched, basically searched the internet, got the best URLs, top 3, using the researcher module, and then created the vector DB and sent the DB to the summarizer module. The summarizer module summarized it and gave it to the newsletter guy, and newsletter guy generated a perfect little newsletter for us. And with that, I conclude AI-based content generation video using Python, Streamlit, Langchain, OpenAI, ChatGPT-4, DuckDuckGo search, and Faiss Vector DB. Thanks for watching.